Hello, hello, everybody. So we are back today for another career and spirituality conversations. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Julie Pone, and I support spiritual seekers having a career experience to reconcile what they do for a living with who they are as a soul. And today, to support me in this vision, I have Kasia Bradford, who's a good friend and colleague of mine. And how are you, Kasia, today?
Great, Julie. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. But before we start, we'll have a short grounding, 1 minute, 2 minutes max of breathing for everyone to relax before listening to this, and for me to relax before I interview.
For both of us. Sounds
For
great.
everyone, yes, yes. So let's do this. So for everyone, if you can close your eyes, do so. And first, let's just connect with the ground. Press our feet on the floor to just feel the presence of the earth underneath us and send it a little thank you for enabling our human experience. And then from our feet, let's bring our focus back up into the chest and in the middle of the chest into the heart. Let's connect with our hearts. Maybe we can feel our hearts or hear our hearts. And we can imagine also as if our breath is flowing in and out directly from the heart. And from there, we're just going to take a few deep breaths, nice, relaxed, slower and deeper than usual breath. And I'll keep the time for us for about 5 cycles of breath. Let's do this. And beautiful. So everyone, whenever you're ready, you can bring yourself back here, opening your eyes. And ta-da!
Yeah, beautiful. What
Welcome
a
back.
nice way to relax.
Yeah. So Kesha, nice to see you again. We hadn't seen each other face to face for a good while now. But and you're a leadership coach, but your career has been, your path has been uh, hectic. So I'm excited.
Thank
Yes, windy road. Yes, like mountains and valleys. Yeah. So I'm excited to know a little bit more about all of that. And but before we get into the career chat, I'd love to know what's your connection to spirituality, your relationship to it, maybe even your definition of it. What's
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about that and I was just like, that's also been a very windy road for
ah,
me. So it's just interesting to get curious and reflect on this because I grew up, I was born and raised Catholic for the first 15 years of my life. So I had a very, I guess, like a religious definition of all of that, church and stuff. But what I remember even from those days, even though I was starting to pick up and notice things that didn't make sense to me,
mhm,
when I got into the environment of the church,
yeah.
there was just always like a feeling of safety. And I always felt like this deep connection to something. So, when my family immigrated to Canada from Poland, where I was born, I kind of really started looking at spirituality very differently. I stopped going to church, and that's when I was seeking out spiritual teachers. And again, there was always this piece of me that, like, I knew there was something bigger. And the thing that I think was the most amazing out of all of it is that I always felt like I was taken care of, if that makes sense. It's just like I just always felt held. Like, I even today, I just feel like I'm okay. Like, I just trust. So it's just knowing that the universe, God, spirit has me. And so even though this whole thing has evolved, what's always been consistent is that I just really trust it. I know that there is obviously something bigger than us. This didn't just happen.
Oh, yeah.
um, and I do believe that we're just humans having a spirits have souls having a human experience on this planet. And even through the spiritual learning, getting into the spaces of, like, I believe that I chose to be here at the time that I chose to be here, that I chose my parents, that my son chose me. I believe in the spirituality and just this really big realm that has evolved over time, and just really trusting that I'm being guided by spirit, by spiritual, by universe, God, again, whatever words people put on it, and I use them all interchangeably. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it feels very much that it's all the same, and maybe depending from which angle we're coming from, we may have a different name. Yes, that
yes,
you're
yes,
comfortable with.
yeah,
Yeah, but you're
yeah.
comfortable with all of them, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. And it's funny because now I'm kind of going back to the roots of Christianity and just kind of getting curious about that. Because again, like I said, I came from this religious background that I just kind of shifted into other things. And again, like, I don't, to me, I don't really, I still don't believe that it matters what we call it. It's here. Like, we can't deny that we're a part of something bigger. And I do believe that we're all guided and that we're all held. It's just whether we can connect to that. And our intuition, I think, is the biggest, kind of indicator of this spirituality that we're a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what's intuition for you, if you were to define it.
To me, it's my higher self. It's definitely not anything that's in my head. It's that connection to, again, this spirit, universe, God.
Yeah.
It's the wisdom, it's the higher wisdom that's coming through. And I don't know how you hear. I actually hear it in voices. I hear it, I see it in images sometimes. So it trips me up at times. And I'm like, oh, I gotta listen.
Oh, yeah. Do you know when I am most aware of my intuition is when I haven't listened to it, you know?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
in a way, if I listen to it, then things go well, and then I nearly don't notice it. But then
Hmm.
when I had a little, hunch, and I'm like, ah,
Yeah,
and then I was like, ah, something
yeah,
happens. And it's like, I knew it. Why did I not listen?
yeah. Oh, I've done that too many times too.
Yeah. Okay, so that's for, okay, spirituality, intuition, and how did that play out or not into your career?
Um, well, like you said, sometimes I listened, sometimes I didn't.
Mhm.
So my career, when so this is interesting. So, like, when I started, on the path of, like, what am I going to go to school for? So I guess intuitively I knew what my passions were. I knew what I wanted to do. But coming from an Eastern European background, well-meaning parents who would tell me I wanted to go into fitness and health. That's kind of been my passion. So, but my dad told me, well, you're never going to make any money doing that. And I mean, I again was I had, my dad, I saw him as somebody who just knew, and I really respected his opinion. And I remember one time he told me, he's like, my friend's daughter, she went to school for business and now she's an accountant and she's got a great career. And I was like, okay, I'm going to business school. So that had nothing to do with my intuition. I basically put my intuition aside and listened to somebody else. So I think that's like a really big example of when we really outsource our knowing to other people
Mm.
who just go based on, whatever they know, right?
I love the way you say it, outsourcing your knowing. That's a
Mhm.
super cool phrasing for that.
Yeah, and I've done that a lot.
Mm.
By the way, that wasn't the only
Right.
time. So yeah, so I ended up going to business school and I became an accountant and I grew an amazing career from it. I was making a really great income. I was working for eventually a really great company, which I actually was ended up with being for 15 years up until the
Mm.
last two. And then the point came where I was just so unfulfilled.
Mm.
I was so unfulfilled. And so even though I was in accounting, so I was a CPA for 17 years, and throughout that whole journey, which probably like 16 years ago, I started studying other things. I went back to recertified as a nutritional coach. Recertified as a strength coach, kind of back to those things that I just really loved. And again, because that's part of my daily life, health is my top value, and fitness, nutrition, sleep all kind of funnel into that for me. So that's been a passion, and I love people. I
Mhm.
love working with people. So I had that aspect of it in my accounting career because I had a team, and so I got to mentor and be a leader in that capacity. So that was awesome. But I just hated the work. I'm like, oh my God, like this is so I can't even do this anymore. So I in my spare time I was fulfilling that need for other knowledge and other things with what I say was my side hustle for like over a decade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, over a decade. And then while I was in that accounting position with that company, I had an opportunity to get out of the accounting realm and step into information technology, which I never went to school for. I had no training in, but the top people in the company recognized my people skills. Like I was always curious and I always wanted to learn other things. And so when I got approached to apply to cover a maternity leave position, I was like, oh my God, but I'm not qualified. So the head, right? The head got in there. But I'm like, I hate my job. But, and this maternity leave was only for a year. And I'm like, what if this woman comes back and then I don't have a job? And so like all these conversations that we get into, but intuitively, my soul was like, you have to do this. You have to, and so I was scared. And so I always say like, we have to do shit scared because when you're doing it scared, it's the right path.
Yeah.
And so I applied for that maternity leave position, which was a business analyst position. I took a few courses
Mhm.
once they offered it to me to just kind of prepare myself because my analytical brain likes to know some things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then, long story short, 5 years in, I was running that whole department. No
Wow.
IT background, no. And again, I remember I always share this with people. I studied Jim Rohn years ago. Like this probably goes
You
back.
did what?
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn. Oh, okay. I don't, yeah.
He was Tony Robbins's mentor, and I didn't even know this until last week, by the way.
Oh.
And Tony quoted the same. Tony quoted the same quote that I literally live by. And Jim Rohn said, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job."
Mm.
And that just resonated with me, and so, and because I love personal development, obviously, that was easy, but it was really, I credit that to ending up where I ended up in that organization running that team, not because I knew IT.
Yeah.
Honestly, not because I knew. I mean, I had concepts, obviously,
Mhm.
but I could utilize the skills of the people and I could really create the environment and the team and bring the skills and fill in the gaps where I needed to fill in the gaps.
Mm.
So yeah, so there has been a lot on that journey. And then of course pandemic hits,
Mhm.
I'm still in that organization and I knew that things were going to be shifting in terms of mandates and stuff. And again, that intuition came up again. It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? Are you going to abandon yourself and stay because it's a great position? Or are you gonna honor yourself and see what happens. And so I chose to honor myself. I listened. I was like, okay, I'm done not listening. And so that journey came to an end. And so now I've been coaching full time for 2 years, and that's kind of been the progression. So
Mm. Okay, and it's interesting what you said about the company that you ended up managing a team, right?
mhm,
Like being the head of the department.
mhm.
So in a way, there were your intrinsic people skills that were finally put to the best use, and
Yeah.
like the technical skills were secondary in a sense.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I found out just a few days ago. I was at a big conference, and one of the speakers talking about business was talking about sales, for instance, and he was saying, don't for to business owners, don't put your best salesperson, don't promote them to sales manager because it's a different job.
Yes.
So like you're losing your best salesperson and they're not going to be happy in a sales, because it's a management role, it's a different job. So sometimes
Yeah.
we even need to protect them from what they think they want. And I
Yeah.
can see that here. So like, but for you, it's the reverse. It's like you were craving for the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
yeah, exploiting your people skills. But like
Mm.
what I hear from your story is like you knew from the very start that people were your thing, and of course like the health and nutrition.
Yeah.
um so how was it for what was your biggest challenge on this journey to finally accept, to act on the voice, to act on the knowing? What had been keeping you from doing that before?
Honestly, Julie, I think is that I didn't trust myself.
Mm.
So I always thought that other people knew better for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because as if they do what's best for us, but I just really believed that other people knew better than I did because I assigned them this authority
Mhm.
title. I would see certain people who had different positions, higher positions, have been in certain spaces for longer, that they just knew better. And so it took me a long time to bit by bit break through the no, but I actually know what I want, which was also a challenge in itself because for a long time I didn't know who I was. I lived my life outsourcing.
Mhm.
So I was lost in who I was as a person. So I was like, well, I don't know what I want, so maybe somebody else does.
Mm. And if I was to ask you, who are you today, what would you say?
Yeah, so today I'm just me, I go with characteristics. I go with, well, you and I have gone through a training together, so you'll understand this. Some people might not, but I really look at like, who am I being?
Yeah,
I'm courageous.
yeah.
I'm loving, I'm kind, I'm connected. So
Mm.
that's kind of how I go to. I don't go to my roles anymore more, but in the past it was like, I'm an accountant and I'm a mom. So I would go to those roles which really mean nothing.
Yeah,
Versus now when I think about myself, it's like, who am I? Who am I being?
yeah.
And where do I want to go? So
Yeah. It's interesting because I've never asked that question to anyone, to any speaker so far. Who are you? And you know,
add it to the list. It's a good one.
yeah. But it's interesting that, it's like you're somehow, maybe I don't know if it's the energy of the trainings that we've done together that is, manifesting here. But yeah, yes, we're not our titles, definitely. We're not. We are, yeah, we are human beings, not human doings.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so easy to identify with our roles because, I mean, really, when we meet people, we all just kind of say, usually we answer with what we do for a living. That's
Yeah.
usually the first thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So were there, like, to go back a little bit on the spiritual
mhm.
path, Has there been some spiritual experiences or awakenings or crises? I don't know, like, that have intertwined or accelerated your career change or your career process?
I think what really just what's downloading to me right now
Mhm.
in response to your question is that when my son was born,
Yeah.
that was a big event for me. I mean, it's I assume a big event for every mother who births a child, but for me had a very special meaning because I was in a toxic situation. I
Mhm.
also was struggling with an eating disorder for about a decade plus, up to when I got pregnant. And so I had to really look at a lot of stuff
Mhm.
when I got pregnant with him. And then, of course, once he was born. And I really do, like, I always say this, and I don't even want to put, like, I never say it to my son because I'm like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. But he just opened my eyes, like his coming to this planet just opened my eyes to the patterns that I was running. And I do believe that it was spiritually guided because I was also the woman who always said, I don't want to have kids. I am never having kids. And then when I was 30, I remember sitting at work, or probably 29, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so bored. I can do this in like 2 days with my eyes closed, and the rest of the time I'm sitting here wasting my time. Maybe I can go on maternity leave." And it was just like the dumbest, like, who thinks like this, you know? Like, who thinks like that? And then I thought, well, I'm almost 30. If I'm ever gonna have a child, I should do that now. I was married, so I mean, it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
And and what a blessing. Like, and I think that all of those messages were my higher self guiding me to this next thing. And so, of course, fast forward a little bit, my son is like 18 months, and I'm like, I can't be here. So I asked for a separation. I just gotten into a new position. So there were so many changes, and I was really starting to step into my higher self. But that was really, I think, that the key event in my life.
Mhm.
Um, and then a little bit before that, when I was 27, 28, I came upon there was this initiative at Christmas time here where I live, where they were stuffing the bus for the food bank. And if you brought donations, they had a psychic on the bus, and she would do a quick reading. And so I got to have this reading with her, and it was being um, streamed on a radio station. So I had this reading with her, and then I got in my car and I kept driving to work, and she just started saying the nicest things about my person, like my soul. And I was bawling. And I was like, oh my God, people see me like this. Like, I was just, and I think again, that started to crack me open a bit, where I started to see like who I was, not this, I was in such self beat up, just in such self beat up all the time. And so yeah, so that was just a little bit before, I I had this thing that, oh, maybe I should have a child now,
Mhm.
but it kind of started going from there, and it's really crazy when I think about in retrospect, but yeah.
Wow. So that's that, you know, to joke a little bit. So you're bored. So that makes you think about maternity leave. Then you go and have a child. Does it mean that if you had had a very fulfilling job at that time, you would never have had the idea to get pregnant?
See, that's the thing, like, who knows? And it's not like I hated the job. I was just so bored.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I loved the people I was working with. The job was super easy. And I was and yeah, and yet there was just something that yeah, it's and I do believe everything happens for a reason. Like, I always have, I still do. And so, yeah, like, I never even thought about it the way that you just asked me this, but I'm like, I obviously had to be there, and I had to get bored.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's the most unusual impulse for maternity that I've ever heard. No, I'll give you that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
yeah. And so you've experienced in a way maybe the cliche. well, no, cliche, traditional path of maybe having an impulse for something we really love, but then it's not the right thing. So like, it's family or society says, no, you'd better do this. So you go and do this, and you're being a very, very good
Mhm.
applying yourself to it. And then eventually it catches on, that it's like the dissatisfaction grows, and eventually you go and blossom into something else. What
Mhm.
would you say to people who are at that stage, that are maybe let's do two stages? What would you say to people who are starting their journey, choosing their career, and
Mhm.
also to people who are already in that job where it's not, they're bored or they're not fulfilled, etc.
Yeah, so starting their journey with their job, like it's interesting that it's a great question because I think that if we only had supportive parents who would let us explore, like my son is going to university next year and I'm not that I'm surprised, just by the way that he shows up in the world, but it's always been his choice. So that's something that I certainly learned from, coming through with the parents that I had, is that, it's like, doesn't matter what you want, this is the smart thing to do. So, I mean, if you were just starting out, don't be in a hurry, especially if you're unsure, you know? Get to know yourself. I honestly believe in that. Work harder on yourself. Well, I will repeat that till the day I die. Get to know who you are and what you love, because it doesn't, we've been sold again this idea that we have to do this or that to be successful in life, but it's just not true. I don't believe it to be true. So getting to know ourselves and not rushing into it. Try different things and see what you like, because I mean, you might think you like this and then you go and do it and it's like, oh god, I don't, like, how many times have you tried an activity like I've certainly done it. I thought I would love something and then I do it, I'm like, oh no, don't want to do that again. So yeah, so if we're just starting out, I think I would really take it from a place of curiosity, which really, then if we find ourselves in a situation where we're bored, I for me, I mean, don't go and have a baby unless you really want to.
Yeah.
I mean, that might help,
Yeah.
because, I'll tell you too, is like when my son was born and when it was time after that 1 year of maternity leave to go back to work, and I took him to daycare, and I remember going to my boss and saying like, can I change my hours? And I didn't know how I could ever leave my son behind. And then the first day I picked him up from daycare, I'm like, oh God, I want to go to work.
Oh my God.
I'm not, because I had all these ideas like, oh, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
No,
Mm.
I'm not built that way. I'm just not built that way. And I have tons of friends who love it and they've had many kids and they stay at home and they love that. And
Mhm.
that's never been my thing.
Yeah.
Because I crave interaction.
Mhm.
And let's face it, babies, they don't talk for a while. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit challenging. Um, so, but when we're bored again, like we get to connect to, like what's coming up for me. I actually don't like that word anymore. Like it's not a word that I have in my vocabulary. And I always say I beat it out of my child, because I'm like, if you're bored, then something else is at play,
Yeah.
because we shouldn't be in life. And I don't mean should, in the, that we shouldn't all over ourselves, but again, it's going back to like, what's going on for me? Like, why am I bored? Why am I unfulfilled? I think that that's probably a better word. Like, why am I unfulfilled? And what would support me in finding my passion, my joy, fulfillment in life? And maybe it's possible where you are. I will tell you, when I got out of accounting and moved into that IT, I came alive. I was so scared, and but I came alive. Like I was learning new things, and again, there was different interactions, and that's where my skills really came out to play, like you mentioned earlier. So look and be open to opportunities, and open the doors. I will tell you, there have been doors that I know were opening for me and I didn't jump in because I was too scared. So again, that goes back to that intuition and listening to the guidance, the bigger guidance,
Yeah.
and trusting it, right?
Yeah. I love that discussion around boredom, because what are we getting out of staying in a space where we are not
Mm-hmm.
excited, or like, I wonder, I'm just, I'm genuinely curious, what's boredom in the first place? Is it an absence of something? Is it just absence of stimulation? I don't know. What do you think is the ultimate trigger?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back because it's like I can't even tell you the last time I was bored.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'm like, I wish I was bored,
yeah,
but I really don't. And something that I've been hearing in personal development spaces where that I'm actually struggling with myself to
yeah,
not be in judgment of it is that we're now trying to give people stimulation in their shower because now it's boring to take a shower. And I was like, I don't understand. Because again, I think that that's a deeper, we're in such an overstimulated world these days that when we're constantly giving stimulation, and I don't know, tell me if that's not your experience, that you have some great ideas and some great intuition when you're in the shower,
yeah, yeah. I should
right?
actually spend like half the day in the shower. I should have a waterproof laptop and work in the shower.
So it's like it's quiet there, and I think we need that. And so I think maybe we confuse quiet with boredom
Yeah,
because we're not used to having time with ourselves to just think and connect and just be guided without the inputs.
yeah, yeah. The way we say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, the whole point in being in this experience is having an experience of this illusion of being separate and the stimulation from the outside world and the five senses,
Mhm.
and somewhat and especially as I hear you talking, it feels like, okay, we're getting so caught up into the external interaction
Mhm.
that in comparison, the being with ourselves and the internal connection is not generating maybe the same dopamine or something like that in the brain, that
Right.
we interpret it as a negative, well, as a something that's unpleasant, or like a void that needs to be filled with something.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So what would you say, like, if you had any insights, advice, or ideas to transform into starting to enjoy and make this internal space, this connection, this quiet, enjoyable, that we want to seek it more instead of avoiding it and rushing into stimulation?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think if for people who are struggling with that, like I like to find, what is a quiet activity that I enjoy? That's how I would start, Is it really that I enjoy sipping my coffee or my hot chocolate or my tea, whatever, but just something so that we can still like occupy ourselves in some way,
Yeah,
but that we're open to doing it in quiet.
I love.
Because I used to be the person who always had to have the radio on,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I just like music.
Yeah, yeah,
But really, I just didn't want to be with my thoughts. And
yeah.
again, like I always, it always my story always comes back to my son.
Uh-huh.
He was such a cluster feeder that I used to have to sit
So it
with him.
it was such a what?
Or cluster feeder, like so he would feed like when I
Mhm.
was breastfeeding him, it
Yeah,
was like nonstop. Like we would go through bouts where he would stop and he'd start again. And
yeah.
so it forced me to sit.
Mhm.
And up until I had him, I would never sit. I was the classic woman, like I was sick and I would be moving boxes because being with myself was like painful.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know if it was I was scared of what I was gonna hear, because we will all hear. I do believe that if we create the quiet space, we will hear
Mm.
things. We will connect to things. And maybe that's what we're afraid of, and that's why we don't do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes if we know that there is a big decision that we need to make and we're just trying to avoid it, so we'll keep busy. So I guess one, I think, is step into courage, because I do believe that being in quiet with yourself, especially if you're not used to that, is a courageous act to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So true. I really, yeah, I agree with you on this one. That there might be, we know that we're going to get something out of this quiet.
Hmm.
And we are so, I mean, our subconscious is so powerful. We bloody
Hmm.
well know that. Yeah, maybe the impulse to do something scary might come about.
Yeah.
So it's like being like this, na na na.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's what busy does to us, is we're just so la 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 la,
Ah,
right?
yes. Oh, and so now that you're, that finally out of the this actually boredom has been hugely creative for you, has been a huge um, a space for you to create a space
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
creation generator when I think of it. So now that you're into a different space, uh, where I'm guessing you're both fulfilled professionally and not afraid to be with with yourself anymore.
That's right. That's right.
What
Yes.
how are you working with people? How do you help them? Who do you help and how? And what patterns do you see in maybe the issues that your clients are coming in with to see you?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I didn't set out to attract the clients that I did, and it's no surprise that that's who I'm attracting because it's my story. So I actually have a lot of female clients who are navigating big life transitions, and in large amounts being in I'll say toxic, for lack of a better word, relationships, marriages. So they're at decision points. And so it's like, okay, well, I was there. I get how they're attracted to, how they found me.
Yeah.
So, but really what I'm hearing, the chief complaint is that they don't own their power.
Mhm.
They don't know who they are. They don't use their voice, and they're busy. They're
Mm.
very, very busy. And it makes sense because I think being busy, again, if I look at my own story, it was a protection to not notice what's really going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. And so what's your, so you're coaching, and where do they start, and what sort of state of being do you help them reach?
So I have two streams in which I coach my clients. So I take on private clients, and for my private clients are those who've already done a level of personal development work. So they actually have a lot of awareness around the concepts.
Yeah.
So I don't need to teach that. So then it's an accountability, it's a support system. It's really teaching them that they lead their life, that they're responsible regardless of how shitty the situation is. We choose whether we stay there or not.
Yeah.
So that's one. And my inner mastery experience, which really is the personal mastery course, it's my group program. And that's where I have people coming in who are really struggling in those areas that I mentioned. And so they connect to who they are. What is their vision? What is it that they want? And then we work through what's been getting in the way, what are the limiting beliefs, rewiring those limiting beliefs, and then setting targets, measurable targets, so that they can actually see themselves moving forward in life. And it is a 9-month process that we're together. But on the other side of it, I just finished a group actually last Thursday. So we finished our 9 months, and the testimonials are already coming in, and they're just so powerful, and they have courage, and they know that they can do it. And they're so confident in who they are, and things are happening, and they're having the best outcome. Like, something that I really teach them is being in a conversation of what's the best outcome for everybody concerned, and really trusting that. And
Yeah.
again, goes back to that intuitive piece. um but it's just, I'm just, oh my gosh, I'm so inspired, and I'm so proud, because it's, when you come with somebody who lacks self-esteem, is not confident, who then just emerges so powerful and trusting, even
Mhm.
though things are not perfect. It's like, it's everything.
Is there a spiritual dimension to the work that you're doing with people? I mean, an obvious one. No, obvious is not the right word, because obviously, like in your being, like you're bringing in that dimension. I have no
Yes.
doubt. But are you also um, using spiritual tools? Out of a better word, or bringing in some spiritual concepts or that dimension with your clients or it's
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do assess my clients to see where they're at in terms of their spiritual journey. So whether they believe, they don't believe, and what they believe. Because the other thing and not surprisingly, again, there is nobody in my community that I've worked with personally or in the group who doesn't believe in something greater. So that's powerful, because again, then we can really lean into that. I honestly don't know how transformation is possible without that piece. Like, I just don't know how it's possible.
yeah. No, yeah, I'm not going to contradict you on this one. Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
if anybody knows, please let us know. But I don't know. Like, I don't know how it's possible. I think that it's just such a key
Mhm.
thing to transformation, to business, to just to success and fulfillment in life in
Yeah,
general.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. So looking back, like now that you're in that, happy, like super happy, super fulfilled place, you're finally doing something that you really wanted to do. If you're looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently or wanted to move quicker, or would you have wanted to be there through a different path? I mean, speeding up the journey rather than spending 17 years in a, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Um, so I have like a two-part answer to that, because again, if I really connect to, and I've had this conversation with myself, so it's interesting you asked me this, because I honestly, I thought to myself, if I really believe that everything happens for me,
Yeah,
then I guess it all played out perfectly.
yeah.
And
Saying
have
that,
I stayed in situations for too long? If I go like with my logical mind, yes. Could I have moved on certain things faster? Could I have made different decisions altogether? Yes.
yeah,
So I think it's again, I will say that now, like, as I live life from this space today, I'm
yeah.
a lot more conscious of making decisions faster,
Mhm,
especially trusting when things are not aligned, and pivoting that quicker.
mhm,
So yes, I guess I needed what I needed back then to develop the muscle of self-trust and courage and all of those things. And I've definitely overstayed in situations, job, personal, all the things. And I think that they all served me to become who I am today. So yeah, yeah.
yeah. So you mentioned, like, trusting, like knowing when things are not alive so that you move quicker.
Mhm.
Do you have tips on how to recognize when things are not aligned? How do you know something's not aligned?
So what I use for myself and with my clients personally, I am super clear on my top 5 values.
Okay.
And anytime I have a decision to make, I look, is it aligned with my top values? If it's an easy decision to make. I've never made decisions so easily. But it
Wow.
took me some time to get to alignment on my values and revisiting to make sure that, okay, am I still in alignment with these values? So that is my biggest tip is for people to, and that's personal, our home, like family values, personal values, and even in organizations. I
Mhm.
know that when that job came to an end 2 years ago, I was not aligned with my values, were not aligned with their values. And so it was an easy decision. Like it was heartbreaking. I'm like, I loved it. I wanted to stay. And I'm like, it's not aligned. Like my values are misaligned. So I think that's a powerful tool to have in our back pocket to know what our values are. And if we honor that, then we're honoring ourselves.
Mm. Is it indiscreet to ask you what your values are?
No, not, not at all. My top value is health.
Yeah.
So I have an acronym for it. It's HIGH.
Okay.
So health, integrity, growth, and harmony. And
Wow.
then love. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes. You love to be high, high on
You
love.
don't have to be
Yeah.
high, but I'm like, I get to be high on my values.
I love that. And so, do you have some advice for people to get to their values, to be clear on their values? What an exercise or something that they can do to brainstorm that for themselves, to get
Yeah,
clear on that for themselves?
yeah, I can share a quick one. I love this exercise because a lot of people do values. They go online, they search
Yeah.
up, words, and then just by default, we want to pick what makes sense for other people or what people will judge us on, and so it's kind of counterproductive, in my opinion. So a very simple exercise is pick a person,
Mhm.
a place, and a brand that you love.
Okay.
And write those, like make yourself 3 columns. So the person that you really admire, a place that you love, and a brand. And the person doesn't matter if you know them, it doesn't matter. And then list all the characteristics under each one of why you really love this. And then free flow write it and then look at the 3 columns and start seeing the patterns. Start
Yeah.
seeing the commonalities. And you'll start to discover what your values are because
Yeah.
you recognize your values in other people.
I love
So
that. I love that. I'm telling you, because I've done many exercises around values. It's the first time. This one is the first. I love it. Like looking at different
yeah.
areas, and yeah, that's a really really cool one. Thanks for that, Kasia. I love it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah, it really connects you because again, if you go with you love those things, like you love the brand, you love the place, you love the person.
Yeah,
So it's you, like it's already in you. You're just seeing it in something else.
yeah. We're basically looking for the mirrors.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, Kasia, I know that you have something coming up. You have an interesting event
Oh
coming up, right?
yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that they only have to click one button to get there. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so Kesha, so I don't that was a super cool conversation, but is there something that I haven't asked you that is important to you that you want to address to finish this time together?
I don't know, Julie. You're powerful. You got me thinking.
Oh,
You got me
sorry.
thinking and remembering and connecting to, I it's very powerful. Thank you. And the grounding is so brilliant because again, as we talked about, even something like your grounding,
Yeah.
again, to go back to people who maybe are still in the busy, it's even something like that creates an opening.
Mm,
It's like we have these conversations free flowing and like as we're talking and as you're asking me questions, it's like stuff is coming and I don't know where it's coming from, but it feels relevant to the conversation. So no, you do a beautiful job and thank you so much. You're just so open and loving and it's so easy to open up with you and share.
well, thank you so much, Kesha. Thank you so much. I wasn't no, I wasn't expecting that. You know. I wasn't asking to get a praise, but thank you. I receive it, thank you so much. But yeah, wanting to know if there is something else that's important to you. But thank you, I appreciate it. And to actually bounce on what you just said. From one interview to another, they're all different. And with you, I'm experiencing today that I'm asking things that I'm even like, where is that coming from? That I'm asking you that question, you know? So I really trust that there is some connection, and it's between your energy and my energy, and the rest, and some certain things are coming through that I don't really own, and you probably don't either, they're just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's an amazing thing to just like yes, it's just coming to me. But yes, because when we're in with people, like even on Zoom,
Mhm.
but being with people and feeling those energy, and when we can just be present,
Yeah.
it's so easy. Like I think sometimes we overthink it, and we can get caught up in the thinking versus if we just are present and listen. And so knowing who we are too is knowing that we don't have to be perfect
Yeah.
and that we can just listen and trust. Again, the trust piece comes up a lot. Trust that the things will just reveal themselves as we're present with people.
I love it. Say no
So yeah.
more, you know? Isn't that the perfect conclusion to this conversation? Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, thank you so much, Kasia. Thank you so much for this time. I'm delighted we had that for the interview series, but also for the two of us to reconnect.
yeah.
So thank you so much for your time with me today.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
You and thank you everyone who have been listening to us until the end. And I shall see you next week for another career and spirituality conversations. Love you, everyone.